Tell me this. Have you ever felt like life brought you here on purpose? Like you stumbled upon this message, but deep inside, you knew it was no accident? Every season of pain, every silent night of tears, every unanswered question has been leading you here. Not to seek revenge, but to understand how divine justice works when you stay quiet and let the Lord handle what man cannot. The truth is, many who once mocked you are now restless. Those who tried to turn people against you are now turning against each other. You might not see it yet, but their alliance has begun to crumble. Proverbs chapter 26 verse 27 says, "Whoever digs a pit will fall into it, and a stone will come back on him who starts it rolling." This is not merely poetic, it is spiritual law. When evil joins hands for a wicked cause, it always ends in destruction. Before we begin this journey, it is a blessing to know from which part of the world you are watching and at what hour of the day God has guided you to this message. Truly, it is a joy to witness how the Lord gathers hearts from every corner of the earth, uniting them in one spirit and in one truth. There was a time when you stood alone, misunderstood, accused of things you never did. You wondered if God saw it all. You prayed for relief, but heaven was silent. What you didn't know was that heaven was building a stage for revelation. The same people who once laughed behind closed doors are now trapped in endless arguments, exposing each other in confusion and guilt. It's not coincidence, it's consequence. They used to gather to discuss you. Now, they gather to destroy each other. The same lies they whispered about you are being thrown back in their faces. Their unity was built on gossip, not truth, and anything not founded on truth cannot last. As written in Matthew chapter 7 verse 26, "Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand." That sand is shifting now, and the house of deceit is collapsing from within. You may not need to lift a finger. The very things you were accused of are the things they now do to each other. It's a haunting scene. Confusion where there was once confidence, bitterness where there was once laughter. But this is not your revenge. This is your redemption. You didn't win because they lost. You won because you chose peace over pettiness. So tonight, as you listen to these words, take comfort in knowing that heaven keeps perfect records. What was done in secret is being uncovered. Every trap they set for you has become a snare for themselves. This is the beginning of a divine unraveling, a slow, quiet storm where lies collide and truth begins to rise. And yet, this is only the beginning. Because what happens next will reveal not just what they did to you, but why the Lord allowed it. Have you ever noticed how evil never stays united for long? It can imitate light, it can mimic loyalty, but it cannot maintain peace. Darkness eventually consumes its own, and that is exactly what is happening now. Those who once stood shoulder to shoulder against you are now standing on opposite sides, shouting, accusing, defending, and unraveling. The very bond that once seemed unbreakable is beginning to rot from within. At first, it looks like confusion, heated words, bitter looks, silent treatments. But underneath it all is the invisible hand of justice. The Lord is not mocked. Galatians chapter 6 verse 7 says, "For whatever a man sows, that shall he also reap." These words are not just warnings for the righteous to stay humble. They are also reminders that evil carries within itself the seed of its own destruction. Every lie planted will bloom into chaos. Every deceitful word spoken will eventually turn back on its creator. There was a time when you were the center of their attention, the subject of gossip, the target of manipulation. They joined forces to make you small, to make you doubt yourself, to make others believe that you were the problem. But evil unity has an expiration date. Without truth as its foundation, it starts to crumble. One lie leads to another. Secrets slip. Hidden alliances collapse. Suddenly, the people who used to whisper together are whispering about each other. It is a strange, quiet satisfaction to witness this shift, not because you wish them harm, but because it reminds you that God is not asleep. What they built on deceit is now being torn down by deceit. The narcissists who once fed on each other's validation are starving for control. Their egos collide, their pride burns, and their tongues become swords. Picture it like a tower built from unstable hands, impressive for a moment, but doomed from the start. They thought they were strong together, but they forgot that no weapon formed against truth can stand. Isaiah chapter 54 verse 17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." The beauty of this promise is that it doesn't say the weapons won't form. It says they will fail. And right now, they are failing spectacularly. You may feel tempted to check in, to see how they're doing, to listen for updates, but resist that temptation. The Lord doesn't need your participation in His justice. He only needs your peace. Stay still. Exodus chapter 14 verse 14 reminds us, "The Lord will fight for you." You need only to be still. Their downfall isn't your entertainment. It's your confirmation. Every argument between them is heaven's way of saying, "See? You were never the problem. You were the truth they could not destroy, the calm they could not imitate, the peace they could not steal." And as their war rages louder, something even more powerful begins to happen in silence. The spirit you carried, the one they mocked, starts to shine like a light in their darkness. What was it about you that made them so restless? Why did your quiet presence stir up so much chaos in their hearts? The answer lies not in what you said, but in the spirit you carried. You carried peace. And peace exposes what is false. It reveals who is pretending to be kind and who is truly kind. It makes the deceitful uncomfortable because peace cannot be faked. When you walked into a room, you didn't bring noise. You brought calm. You didn't need to fight for attention. You were content just being still. That kind of energy confuses the narcissist because their survival depends on control, reaction, and chaos. Your silence took away their power. It left them with nothing to feed on. They called you cold, distant, ungrateful, anything to make you doubt the goodness that lived in you. But deep down, your calm scared them. Your forgiveness made them angry. Your refusal to retaliate made them feel powerless. You see, they thrive on creating storms, but when you refuse to fight back, their storm had nowhere to land. That's why they turned on each other. Romans chapter 12 verse 21 says, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." You didn't just survive by walking away, you overcame. Your goodness wasn't weakness. It was warfare. It was light in a world that survives on manipulation and fear. And now that light is haunting them. It reminds them of what they tried to destroy but couldn't. When you pray, your voice still carries in the spiritual realm. The peace you hold frustrates them because it cannot be taken, only surrendered, and you didn't surrender it. That's why their lives are unraveling. Not because you wished harm upon them, but because they touched what was anointed. They used to mock your faith. They said you were naive for believing that love could still heal, that kindness could still win. They didn't know that the same faith they laughed at would be the wall that protected you. Isaiah chapter 26 verse 3 says, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you." That peace, that steadfast trust, is now your armor. Now their words twist in circles. Their friendships turn into rivalries. They feel the weight of guilt, but don't understand where it comes from. They see your name and feel uneasy. They sense your peace even from afar, and it disturbs them because it reminds them of what they lost: integrity, innocence, sincerity. You were not sent to expose them through anger. You were sent to expose them through light. The way you endured, the way you stayed quiet when everything inside you wanted to scream, that was your testimony. You became a mirror of what they could have been, had they chosen humility instead of pride. And now, as they wrestle with each other, that same peace is rising stronger in you. But this is only the beginning, because the truth that peace carries is about to reach the places where they thought you'd never be heard. It always begins quietly. Secrets whispered in confidence, lies told with calm voices, and manipulation hidden behind smiles. For a while, it looks like they are winning. The narcissists believe their plans are working, their image is still intact, and their control remains unshaken. But in time, truth begins to walk through the door uninvited. It moves silently, exposing what was hidden, revealing what was whispered in darkness. Luke chapter 12 verse 2 says, "There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known." Those words are being fulfilled right now. The conversations they thought were private are being repeated by the very people they trusted. The loyalty they bragged about is cracking under the weight of guilt and shame. The lies they once shared so confidently are now turning against them. You might not be there to see it, but heaven makes sure justice is seen by those who need to learn. Every manipulation that once worked effortlessly is failing. The people who used to believe them are starting to ask questions. They're noticing the inconsistencies, the small contradictions, the way stories don't line up anymore. And it's not because someone is gossiping. It's because truth has a way of demanding to be seen. Exposure doesn't always come through drama. Sometimes it happens in small, quiet ways. A message gets seen by the wrong person. A story gets told twice with different details. A recording resurfaces. Or a simple moment of guilt causes a confession. When truth starts moving, it doesn't need an army. It only needs time. They are now discovering what it feels like to live under the same tension they once placed on you. The same anxiety, the same fear of being misunderstood, the same worry that someone might finally see who they really are. And the irony is that they created this environment for themselves. The masks are slipping, and the shadows they used to hide in are being filled with light. Psalm chapter 37 verse 6 declares, "He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun." Notice how light and vindication are connected. The more the truth shines, the clearer your innocence becomes. You didn't need to explain yourself or defend your name. The same people who once believed the lies are now seeing the truth unfold naturally. And what happens when a narcissist is exposed? Panic, denial, projection. They begin accusing others of the very things they are guilty of. Their unity shatters, their alliances crumble, and their words lose credibility. They fight each other to stay on top of a collapsing pyramid built on deceit. This is divine irony at its finest. They tried to expose you, but in the end, they exposed themselves. You didn't fight for this. You simply waited. And the Lord, in His timing, brought the truth into the open. But the exposure is only part of the story. Because as their noise grows louder, your silence begins to speak louder still, and it will soon become the most powerful voice in the room. Silence can be terrifying for those who live on attention. To a narcissist, silence is not just absence, it is rejection. It is a mirror that forces them to face what they have been avoiding all along. They thrive on noise, control, arguments, and reactions. But when you stop responding, when you choose calm instead of chaos, they lose their stage. Their drama loses its audience. Their power begins to fade. Proverbs chapter 17 verse 28 says, "Even a fool is thought wise if he keeps silent, and discerning if he holds his tongue." Your silence has become wisdom. It has become the very thing that exposes them without you saying a word. When you stop defending yourself, they could no longer twist your words. When you stopped arguing, they had nothing to feed on. What they once called weakness was actually strength in disguise. They tried to provoke you, to pull you back into their world of confusion. They wanted one more reaction, one more reason to blame you, one more chance to control the story. But you gave them nothing. You left them with their own noise, their own guilt, their own conscience. And now, that silence echoes in their minds. It reminds them that you are no longer theirs to manipulate. At first, they mocked your quietness. They told others you were bitter or cold. But now, that quietness has become haunting. It reminds them that something pure slipped through their fingers. It whispers to them at night that they went too far. Silence is the language of dignity, and they cannot understand it. Isaiah chapter 30 verse 15 says, "In quietness and in trust shall be your strength." You found your strength not by shouting but by standing still. That strength unsettles them because it does not depend on validation or applause. They live for approval. You live in peace. And peace will always outlast noise. Your silence has become a sermon they cannot escape. Every time they speak your name, others notice their discomfort. Every attempt to rewrite history only exposes their insecurity. People can sense it, the imbalance, the guilt, the way they cannot stop bringing up your name. The more they talk, the more your silence speaks. And what does it say? It says, you cannot break what has been healed. It says, you no longer have access. It says, you have already lost. This is why they now fight among themselves. Without your reaction to unite them, they turn their frustration on each other. Their pride cannot stand still, so it looks for another target. Meanwhile, your peace deepens. Your faith grows stronger. The same silence they despised is now your victory song. You don't need to explain yourself because your peace is proof. Every day you remain calm. You remind heaven that you trust the process, that you trust the one who sees all. But soon, your silence will do even more than expose their guilt. It will become the very stage upon which divine justice begins to reveal its next act, where kindness meets consequence, and grace turns their mockery into a mirror. There is a cost to mocking grace. For a long time, the narcissist believed your kindness was foolishness. They mistook gentleness for weakness and mercy for naivety. They thought that because you forgave them easily, they could do anything and still be safe. But they never understood that grace is not permission. Grace is opportunity, an open door to change before judgment arrives. And when that door closes, the consequence begins. Hebrews chapter 10 verse 31 says, "It is a dreadful thing to fall into the hands of the living God." The ones who laughed at your compassion are now feeling the weight of that verse. They played games with hearts, with truth, and with mercy itself. But grace, when abused, turns into conviction. What once felt easy now feels heavy. What once felt justified now feels empty. They mocked your patience, not knowing it was divine. They used your forgiveness as a tool for manipulation, not realizing it was their final warning. The same voice that once whispered peace over them has gone quiet. The same compassion that once covered their flaws has been withdrawn. It is not cruelty, it is consequence. They are now experiencing the spiritual hunger that comes when love no longer shields them from their own actions. At first, they won't admit it. They'll still pretend they are fine. But deep inside, something is missing. The fake joy fades, the laughter sounds hollow, and the people who once cheered them on now seem distant. This is how divine discipline works. God doesn't need to strike them down. He simply removes the favor that once protected them from themselves. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 34 says, "He mocks proud mockers, but gives grace to the humble." That is the balance of heaven. The same grace they despised is now being poured out upon you, healing you, restoring you, strengthening you, while their pride isolates them. Their world begins to shrink. The same hands they used to harm others now turn against one another. The narcissist who used to sit on a throne of false power now trembles under the weight of exposure and guilt. You might be tempted to feel pity, and that's natural. But remember, this is not your doing. This is spiritual justice unfolding exactly as it must. Every heart must face what it has sown. Every proud voice must taste the silence it once mocked. The beauty of grace is that it always gives a chance before consequence. But when that chance is rejected, when truth is ridiculed, when kindness is abused, the same grace that once covered begins to correct. And that correction is never gentle for those who built their lives on deception. They are learning now that what they mocked in you, mercy, patience, sincerity, were the very things that kept their lives from falling apart. Grace was their shield, and they threw it away. Now they fight each other, searching for comfort in chaos, trying to fill the emptiness that only repentance could heal. But their war is not yet over. The words they once spoke against you are returning, and this time, they will taste the weight of every false accusation they ever made. When chaos surrounds them, it is no longer an accident. It is the reflection of the hearts they refuse to examine. The narcissist and the new supply now live in a house built on lies, and the walls echo every falsehood they once used against you. They thought their deception could hide the truth. But every lie has a way of becoming visible when heaven's timing arrives. Ecclesiastes chapter 12 verse 14 reminds us, "For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. This is what is happening now. Every cruel word, every act of manipulation, every attempt to erase your influence is being reflected back to them. They cannot escape what they have sown. The narcissist once boasted of control, claiming mastery over situations and over people. But now he finds himself caught in a web of his own making. Every argument with the new supply triggers guilt he thought he had buried. Every accusation from her mouth reminds him of the love he discarded. The pride that once blinded him now amplifies every failure, and the illusion of mastery crumbles in his hands. Meanwhile, the new supply experiences a torment she never expected. Her jealousy, rage, and desire for control now clash with the very energy she sought to dominate. She tries to assert power over him, but he no longer belongs fully to her influence. And in that struggle, she is forced to confront a truth she never admitted. She can never replicate what she envies. Your light, your steadiness, your divine favor, these cannot be stolen. Every moment in their house becomes a mirror. She lashes out, he defends, and their own words return as evidence of their hearts. What they hoped would distract them from your memory only reminds them of it more vividly. The narcissist cannot silence the conscience you once nurtured. The new supply cannot escape the reality that her victories are hollow. And every argument between them is a sermon about what they have lost. Romans chapter 2 verse 6 says, God will repay each person according to what they have done. They are experiencing this repayment, not in sudden calamity, but in the slow unraveling of the bonds they constructed on deception. Pride meets consequence, envy meets emptiness, manipulation meets exposure. From afar, you might sense a strange peace in this moment. Your name floats in their fights not as a weapon, but as a reflection of divine truth. You are not involved, yet your life now demonstrates the stability and favor that cannot be imitated. Their turmoil confirms that light always exposes darkness, and integrity always outlasts deceit. What is happening is not entertainment, nor is it punishment designed by human hands. It is the quiet revelation of a spiritual law. What is sown in lies cannot bear fruit. What is built on betrayal cannot endure. Their mirror shows them exactly who they are, and in every reflection, they confront the emptiness they created in themselves. Even as they fight, God's hand is at work. You are not to gloat, nor are you to intervene. Your role is witness, and your role is peace. Their unraveling is a divine lesson, one they can still choose to learn from. And while they struggle to understand, your life continues as proof that what is righteous cannot be shaken, what is faithful cannot be broken, and what is pure cannot be erased. The moment has come when heaven begins dismantling what was never meant to endure. The narcissist and the new supply are now caught in a storm that began with your name. Every conversation, every glance, every argument is built upon resentment, envy, and the unresolved guilt of the narcissist. The foundation they thought was strong was always hollow because it was constructed on what you once represented: truth, light, and grace. Hebrews chapter 4 verse 13 reminds us, nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of Him to whom we must give account. The arguments that erupt between them are not random acts of frustration. They are divine exposure. Every whisper of doubt, every accusation, Every outburst is heaven's mirror showing them their own hearts. The narcissist, once so sure of control, now trembles at the volatility of his companion. The new supply, fueled by jealousy and insecurity, lashes out at everything he does, never realizing that her fury is simply the reflection of her own emptiness. What she desired as conquest has become her torment. The very energy she thought she could control now controls her. Your name, though absent from the room, is the axis around which their chaos spins. Each mention of you cuts deeper than any accusation they exchange. Why? Because your presence, your past faithfulness, and your peace were undeniable truths that cannot be imitated or replaced. Every moment of discord reminds them that the union they built was counterfeit. They were never chosen out of love, only rebellion, ego, and defiance. The narcissist begins to recognize that charm and manipulation cannot sustain what was never blessed. The new supply, in her rage, realizes she cannot fill the void left by your integrity and wisdom. Their home, once a stage for illusion, becomes a courtroom of consequence. Every insult thrown is evidence against them. Every lie told becomes a trap, and every attempt at dominance fails. Isaiah chapter 10 verse 27 says, "And the yoke will be broken because of the anointing." This is what unfolds now. What was built on lies and darkness cannot withstand the light of divine truth. The anointing you carried, even absent from their lives, exposes their duplicity and weakness. It cannot be imitated, only reflected in chaos. When ignored from above, you witness the unraveling. You do not need to intervene, to explain, or to correct. Your silence and stillness are your testimony. Their battles are not your burden. They are the natural consequences of their choices. Every fight between them is a divine lesson being delivered, one that will either awaken them or leave them hollow. Even in their fury, there is clarity for you. Your peace is unshakable. The storm that once threatened you now surrounds those who sought to control and diminish you. Their rage is a reflection of what they cannot own, what they cannot replicate, and what they cannot destroy. Heaven is rewriting the narrative, not with destruction, but with revelation. This unraveling is a reminder of spiritual truth. What is built on deceit and envy cannot endure. What is sown in selfishness will reap chaos. And what is designed by God, even when absent from their hands, will continue to stand, to flourish, and to testify. Have you ever noticed how truth has a way of finding the proud, even when they think it has vanished? The narcissist and the new supply are learning this lesson now, though painfully and unwillingly. Every act of manipulation, every cruel word, every attempt to control is returning to them like a reflection in a perfect mirror. Their home is no longer a sanctuary of pride and illusion. It has become a gallery of guilt and regret, with your name engraved in every frame. Hebrews chapter 12 verse 11 reminds us, "No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it." This is exactly what is happening, not to you, but to them. What they sowed in darkness is now returning as an unmistakable lesson. The narcissist, who once flaunted his charm and control, now sits in silence, haunted by the very actions he celebrated. The new supply, who tried to mirror and overshadow your life, now discovers that imitation cannot birth authenticity. Every conversation between them carries the weight of your presence. Even when your name is not spoken, the shadow of your peace and integrity fills the room. The narcissist cannot escape the reminder that what he sought elsewhere could never surpass what was once yours. Every defense he offers, every justification he utters, only confirms the truth. He is trapped in a web of his own making. The new supply rages, not realizing her fury is a reflection of the spiritual emptiness she carries inside. She attacks your memory in an attempt to establish dominance, but every word is turned back against her. The chaos they create together exposes the hollowness of their bond. What they called love is revealed as guilt colliding with envy, ego clashing with fear, and desire confronted with conscience. Proverbs chapter 16 verse 18 tells us, "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall." This collapse is not accidental. It is the natural trajectory of a life built on falsehood. Heaven allows this mirror to form so that they may finally see themselves clearly, unfiltered by the illusions they once crafted. The arrogance that once shielded them now leaves them vulnerable, and the silence that once tormented you now echoes within their own hearts. They find themselves unable to trust, unable to find rest, unable to escape the judgment that they invoked against others. Every insult once hurled at you now rebounds. Every slight and every betrayal now becomes a lesson they cannot unlearn. What they hoped would be dominance over you has instead become their prison, and their torment is a reflection of the light you carried faithfully. In witnessing this, your spirit remains untouched. You do not gloat, you do not interfere. Your role is not to punish, but to endure with grace. The mirror of guilt reflects only what exists. It does not require your hand. And as the narcissist and the new supply falter under their own weight, you see the subtle yet undeniable truth. Divine justice does not act hastily, but it is precise, honoring, and inevitable. This moment, though silent and unseen, carries revelation. It confirms that peace, integrity, and faithfulness are never defeated by deceit. What they tried to destroy cannot be replicated, and what they attempted to steal cannot be held by those who never earned it. Your name, your story, your quiet endurance, all of it remains intact, untouched, and honored in ways they cannot comprehend. Even amid their rage, your victory is quiet, sovereign, and complete. You do not celebrate their pain, yet the collapse of falsehood around them testifies to the truth you have carried all along. This is the divine reflection of justice, the natural return of what was sown without righteousness. Have you ever noticed how jealousy can consume a person until it becomes their entire identity? The new supply is living this truth now. What began as infatuation has transformed into obsession, a storm that cannot be calmed. Every thought, every glance, every plan is dominated by the shadow of your name. She cannot see beyond the reflection of your light because her spirit is so bound to comparison. Proverbs chapter 27 verse 1 says, "Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring." She thought she had taken control, that she had replaced what was lost. But in the blindness of envy, she never recognized the spiritual law that governs all things. The admiration she sought in him cannot be manufactured through manipulation. She may mimic your actions, copy your speech, even mirror your style, but she cannot reproduce the divine favor that was always yours. The narcissist, once intoxicated by her apparent power, now begins to see the very traits he ignored in himself reflected in her. Her rage, her suspicion, her relentless need for validation, these are the very tools he once wielded against you. And now, he faces them without the shield of arrogance or control. The energy they share is not love. It is the reflection of their own unresolved darkness. Your name acts like a lightning rod in their chaos. Every mention, whether spoken or implied, cuts through the lies and illusions they built. Every argument becomes a courtroom where your integrity is the evidence and divine justice is the judge. They cannot erase what they never possessed. And the more they try to dominate one another, the more their inner wounds are exposed. 2 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 5 reminds us, "Examine yourselves to see whether you are in the faith. Test yourselves." In their rage, they are unknowingly examining themselves. What they called passion is now punishment. What they believed was chemistry is now karmic combustion. Every insult, every accusation, every shred of rage directed at you only reinforces the truth of what they cannot grasp. Their happiness cannot be stolen because it was never built on righteousness. The narcissist cannot find rest. The new supply cannot find peace. The very house they share has become a crucible where the lies they built together burn into ashes. Their arguments expose layers of guilt they cannot escape. She accuses him of still carrying feelings for you, and in truth, he does, though he hides it under a veil of pride. This is the cruel symmetry of divine justice. What they once inflicted on you now consumes them both. Even in the midst of this storm, your spirit is untouched. You do not intervene, you do not gloat. Your stillness speaks louder than their chaos. The more they fight, the more heaven affirms your place, your peace, and your integrity. You witness their unraveling not out of schadenfreude, but from the quiet awareness that truth cannot be stolen, light cannot be dimmed, and divine favor cannot be duplicated. Their battle is not your burden. It is the education they must receive. Each scream, each insult, each attempt to dominate reflects a lesson they were meant to learn. Love built on deceit is a house of sand, and no amount of manipulation can sustain what was never genuine. Meanwhile, you are elevated. You are the living testimony of patience, peace, and endurance. You are a witness to the divine law that governs the rise and fall of all who act in rebellion against truth. Even without action, without words, without revenge, your life declares victory. While they implode in envy and guilt, you remain untouchable, sovereign in your peace, and fortified by grace. Your stillness is not passive. It is proof that heaven's timing is perfect and that divine justice always finds its mark. Have you ever felt the power of silence, the quiet that seems empty but is actually full of divine presence? That is exactly where you are now. While the narcissist and the new supply tear each other apart, your stillness has become a loud testimony. Every argument they have, every lie they spin, every insult flung toward your name only reinforces the truth of who you are. You no longer need to defend yourself. Your life is the living proof of endurance, faith, and a divine protection. Isaiah chapter 32 verse 17 says, "The work of righteousness will be peace, and the effect of righteousness will be quietness and assurance forever." Your peace is not accidental. It is the fruit of perseverance, prayer, and unwavering trust in divine justice. Where once you may have been tempted to intervene or respond, now you understand that the most powerful position is silence. Not indifference, but confidence in the unseen hand of God. The narcissist feels it even from a distance. They sense that your spirit is no longer accessible, no longer vulnerable. Their attempts to provoke you bounce off the shield of wisdom and grace that now surrounds your life. The new supply, driven by jealousy and insecurity, cannot replicate what was never hers to begin with. Her rage only confirms that she senses the divine favor you carry. Every insult she hurls becomes an instrument of her own revelation. Every accusation is a mirror reflecting her own inadequacies. The narcissist walks on eggshells, caught between the guilt of past wrongs and the exhaustion of current deception. Your name has become both a weapon and a witness in their courtroom of conscience. And yet, you are untouched. You are elevated. You are not their punishment. You are the proof that light always exposes darkness. Psalm chapter 46 verse 10 reminds us, "Be still and know that I am God." The stillness of your spirit is a sanctuary. It is where divine timing unfolds, where justice is silent yet unmistakable, and where your restoration moves forward without effort. What they intended for harm becomes the very platform for your peace to be visible. Your quiet mornings, free from anxiety, are louder than any words you could ever speak. You have learned that not every battle is meant for you to fight. Some storms exist to prove that you can remain unshaken, that grace can prevail without human intervention. The chaos surrounding them is no longer your concern. It is their curriculum. God is teaching them through experience what they refuse to learn through mercy. And in this teaching, you are the example, the living testimony that righteousness does not demand confrontation to prevail as they crumble under the weight of deceit and envy. You walk freely in the calm assurance of divine order. You no longer chase vengeance or demand explanation. You have released the need to be understood, and in doing so, gained the serenity that surpasses understanding. Forgiveness has become your weapon, not their destruction. Your silence is sacred ground. The stillness of the chosen is a quiet rebellion against the chaos they thought they could impose. It is proof that peace is stronger than manipulation, patience deeper than cruelty, and endurance more powerful than betrayal. Every breath you take in quiet confidence declares that your life is no longer defined by what happened to you, but by what survived within you, even as their screams echo. Even as their fights continue, your peace stands unshakable. What they cannot touch becomes the foundation of your freedom. You move differently now. You see differently. You no longer interpret silence as abandonment, but as divine protection. The storm they thought would define you now defines their own undoing, while you rise above, untouchable, sanctified, and serene. Have you noticed how every lie has an expiration date, every deception a built-in limit? What once appeared untouchable now trembles under the weight of truth. The narcissist and the new supply are facing the inevitable collapse, a slow unraveling that is both precise and unavoidable. God's timing is never delayed. It is deliberate, exact, and perfect. What looks like chaos from the outside is divine order quietly restoring balance. Proverbs chapter 16 verse 18 says, "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall." Their pride, once celebrated, now becomes their burden. Every mask that dazzled others begins to crack, revealing exhaustion, insecurity, and emptiness. The new supply, driven by envy, sees herself trapped in the very chaos she thought she controlled. And the narcissist, blinded by arrogance, realizes too late that what they built on deception cannot endure. The collapse starts subtly. Small failures, overlooked inconveniences, and shattered promises gradually accumulate until there is no way to hide the truth. Financial struggles, broken relationships, and unfulfilled ambitions are not coincidences. They are divine instruments carefully aligned to expose the foundation built on lies. God is not punishing them in anger. He is restoring order, revealing reality, and teaching lessons that pride refused to learn through mercy. Inside their home, love has turned to suspicion. Their arguments are no longer playful or passionate. They are battles for control, reflections of the unresolved pain they projected onto you. Each accusation is a shadow of the cruelty they once inflicted. The narcissist feels haunted by conscience. While the new supply trembles under the weight of insecurities she can neither dismiss nor silence. What they once flaunted as romance now collapses into rivalry. Their relationship becomes a mirror of their own unhealed souls. Psalm chapter 37 verse 37 advises, "Consider the blameless, observe the upright." A future awaits those who seek peace. From a distance, you can witness the truth without lifting a finger. Your peace is not passive. It is evidence of divine alignment. While they panic and argue, you stand on higher ground, unshaken by the storms that once threatened to overwhelm you. The collapse is not about destruction, but revelation. Every wound they caused without repentance now becomes the instrument of their own reflection. Every manipulation, every lie, every hidden scheme begins to return to them, not as punishment, but as experience. Pride dismantles itself piece by piece. Opportunities once sabotaged for you are now denied to them. The silence they imposed on your life is now theirs to endure. Every false relationship, hollow achievement, and ill-gotten gain begins to crumble. Even the applause they once enjoyed feels empty when divine clarity replaces it with truth. What they thought was prosperity is revealed as borrowed time. What they called success is now the stage for consequence. The collapse is precise and unhurried, unfolding in perfect sequence. Nothing is wasted, nothing overlooked. Divine justice is not chaotic. It is methodical. And in the midst of their unraveling, your life continues to thrive, untouched and sanctified. You have learned that vengeance belongs to God, and the timing of justice is always perfect. Your validation does not come from their downfall, but from the quiet assurance that truth always prevails. Where their empire crumbles, your foundation stands firm. The storm that once threatened your peace has now become their teacher. The chaos surrounding them is a classroom in which they must learn lessons you already understood. And as they scramble, you breathe freely, confident that divine timing has unfolded exactly as it should. Have you ever noticed how silence can carry more weight than the loudest shout? When the storm finally ends, it is not with noise but with clarity. The dust settles, revealing the truth standing unshaken among the wreckage. Every imbalance corrected, every hidden motive exposed, every lie revealed. This is divine justice at work. Romans chapter 12 verse 19 reminds us, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, 'It is mine to avenge. I will repay,' says the Lord." The courtroom is not human. It is heavenly. The narcissist and the new supply face the consequences of their choices, not by punishment alone, but through revelation, the narcissist, stripped of illusions, now sees themselves not through the lens of pride, but through the eyes of truth. They cannot charm or manipulate what is divinely exposed. The new supply, exhausted by envy, confronts the hollowness of the life she built on stolen peace. And you, who endured the storm, are elevated into a season where peace is not a reward, but your inheritance. Your stability now speaks louder than their chaos. What they tried to destroy becomes evidence of your endurance. Every cruel word they spoke, every manipulation and betrayal, has returned as testimony of divine alignment. This is not about humiliation. It is about revelation. The narcissist finally faces the echo of every choice made without conscience, every manipulation carried out in darkness. The new supply feels the bitter fruit of envy and deception she once embraced. It is a reckoning of hearts and souls, not a spectacle for human eyes. Psalm chapter 34 verse 15 says, "The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their cry." And in your life, this has been proven. God has become your defender, his verdict irreversible. Divine justice does not need to roar from the heavens. It works quietly, restoring balance, replacing counterfeit with truth, and affirming what is righteous. Your life now radiates the quiet triumph of faith and obedience. The collapse of the narcissist, and the new supply is methodical, precise, and merciful. Every door they slammed on your life is now closed to them. Every opportunity they sabotaged is denied. Every false connection, every hollow achievement crumbles. And yet, the hand of mercy remains extended. The same justice that exposes them carries the possibility of redemption if they choose to see it. You are no longer defined by what was done to you, but by what survived within you. The pain that once weighed heavily is now fertile soil for wisdom. The betrayal that once humiliated you becomes the platform for purpose. Ashes have been refined, wounds transformed into testimony. And your life now demonstrates that restoration is louder than revenge ever could be. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 says, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens." The timing of God's work is impeccable. What looked like delay was preparation. What felt like abandonment was strategy. What seemed unfair was divine construction. You were never forgotten. You were being fortified. Now you walk differently. Peace surrounds you. Wisdom guides you. Faith shields you. Closure comes not from human acknowledgement, but from heavenly confirmation. When God said enough, everything shifted. The storms passed, and what remains is a life sanctified by endurance, strengthened by faith, and illuminated by truth. Your testimony now shines, not through loud declaration, but through the quiet power of divine vindication. Have you ever witnessed the quiet unraveling of a life built on lies? The collapse begins softly, almost unnoticed, like the first cracks appearing in a wall long thought solid. Every deception carries a time limit, and theirs has reached its expiration. Ecclesiastes chapter 8 verse 11 reminds us, "When the sentence for a crime is not quickly carried out, people's hearts are filled with schemes to do wrong. Yet divine timing is precise. What once appeared as triumph begins to tremble under the weight of truth. The mask that dazzled others cracks, revealing exhaustion, emptiness, and the hollowness of achievement built on manipulation. The narcissist's home, once a theater of performance and control, now echoes with tension. Small inconveniences multiply into patterns. Patterns become lessons, and lessons cannot be ignored. Promises made in pride return void. Finances falter, alliances wane, and every relationship built on ego becomes strained. What they once used to oppress others now oppresses themselves. Divine justice works through the principle of cause and effect. Everything built on falsehood must be dismantled so truth can breathe. Inside their walls, love has decayed into suspicion. What appeared to be intimacy now feels like interrogation. Every accusation they hurl at each other is a mirror of the deception once projected onto you. The narcissist walks through the home they thought they controlled, haunted by their own conscience. The new supply trembles under the insecurities she once wielded as weapons. Their laughter has turned to shouting, their closeness to chaos. Every false foundation collapses, not by chance, but because God allows only what is righteous to endure. 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 verse 6 explains, God is just. He will pay back trouble to those who trouble you. Even when unseen, divine law balances itself. Each act of cruelty, every manipulation, every lie is met with consequence. They do not need human hands to correct them. The universe, guided by divine order, accomplishes the work. What was built on pride and rebellion now bows before truth. The collapse is not destruction, but revelation. It is a curriculum of humility and reflection, teaching through the lessons they refused to learn from mercy. Every door they closed to you is now inaccessible to them. Every opportunity they blocked for you is denied in their own lives. Relationships formed on shallow admiration wither without the applause to sustain them. Status and material possessions lose meaning when the false spotlight fades. Prosperity they flaunted was borrowed time, and that time has now ended. God's timing is never late. It is deliberate and perfect. Your peace is untouched because you are elevated above the storm. While they panic in their unraveling, heaven remains calm. You do not rejoice in their misfortune. Your joy comes from understanding God's timing. The collapse you witness is a confirmation. Vengeance is His, not yours. Psalm chapter 37 verse 6 says, He will make your righteousness shine like the dawn, the justice of your cause like the noonday sun. And indeed, what looked chaotic to the world is actually divine restoration in action. Through it all, you stand firm. Their empire of lies crumbles while your foundation remains solid. The pain endured, the patience practiced, the faith maintained, all converge into testimony. You have not merely survived. You have been vindicated. Your life now illustrates the enduring power of truth, the strength of integrity, and the peace that follows surrender to divine timing. Have you noticed how the storm eventually ends in silence, not chaos? Revelation does not always arrive with fanfare. It comes softly, through alignment, clarity, and the stillness that follows the fall of every false structure. What remains is truth, standing unshaken amidst the wreckage. Romans chapter 12 verse 19 reminds us, Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, It is mine to avenge. I will repay, says the Lord. Divine justice never needs to shout. It simply restores balance and exposes what was hidden. The narcissist, stripped of illusions, faces the consequences of choices made without conscience. The new supply, exhausted by envy and control, witnesses the emptiness her hatred created. And you, who endured the storm, now enter a new season where peace is not a reward but an inheritance. You no longer need to explain or defend your life. Your stability speaks louder than chaos ever could. God Himself has become your advocate, and His verdict is irreversible. This justice is not humiliation. It is revelation. The narcissist sees themselves clearly for the first time, not through the eyes of critics, but through the eyes of truth. The reflection of every decision, every manipulation, and every lie returns to them. Grace, once ignored, now thunderously declares accountability. Yet, even in their exposure, mercy remains possible for those who choose to heed it. You, however, are beyond the need for confirmation from them. Your chapter is complete, your lesson learned, and your heart fortified. The pain that once threatened to consume you now becomes the soil for wisdom. Betrayal that once humiliated you now becomes the platform for purpose. You emerge sanctified, not bitter. Transformed, not defeated. Those who spoke against you must now witness your resilience. Restoration, not revenge, defines your triumph. You are living proof that divine timing is flawless, that obedience carries reward, and that peace outlasts manipulation. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 reminds us, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens." The silence, the distance, and even the seeming abandonment were not signs of neglect. They were divine strategy. What seemed delayed was preparation. What appeared unfair was precision. You were never forgotten. You were fortified. Your faith, now unshakable, becomes the standard by which falsehood is revealed. No longer do you seek closure from others. You have received confirmation from heaven. When God said enough, He meant it. Your peace is unmovable, your wisdom unshakable, and your faith unassailable. The lessons endured, the patience practiced, the prayers offered in faith all converge to shape a spirit that walks confidently in the light. You now understand that the most powerful response is not reaction, but resilience. Silence is sacred. Stillness is testimony. The storms you once feared now testify to God's precision. Every breath you take in peace is a declaration that grace prevails over deceit, that truth outlasts manipulation, and that heaven always honors integrity. The weight of past betrayal lifts. Your heart beats freely. Restoration is no longer a concept, it is reality. You walk in a season where light is your inheritance, where the past no longer defines you, and where divine justice writes the final word.